The wind was picking up now, blowing clouds across the moon, shrouding the garden in darkness. "Stay up with me?" Jesus asked his friends. They said yes and waited under the olive trees. But they were tired, and soon they fell asleep. Jesus walked ahead alone into the dark. He needed to talk to his heavenly Father. He knew it was time for him to die. They had planned it long ago, he and his Father. Jesus was going to take the punishment for all the wrong things anybody had ever done or ever would do. "Papa, Father," Jesus cried, and he fell to the ground. "Is there any other way to get your children back, to heal their hearts, to get rid of the poison?" But Jesus knew that there was no other way. All the poison of sin was going to have to go into his own heart. God was going to pour into Jesus' heart all the sadness and brokenness in people's hearts. He was going to pour into Jesus' body all the sicknesses in people's bodies. God was going to have to blame his Son for everything that had gone wrong. He would crush Jesus. Suddenly, through the trees, a glitter of starlight flashed off steel. Into the quiet garden came whispers, muffled voices, clanking metal, and the sound of boots marching. Jesus stood up. He woke his friends. "Now is the time," he said gently. "Everything that was written about me, what God had been telling his people all through the long years, it's all coming true." And into the night, with burning torches and lanterns, with swords and clubs and armor, they came, an army of soldiers. Judas led them straight to Jesus so they could arrest him. Jesus was waiting for them. Peter leapt up, took a sword, and tried to defend Jesus. He sliced off a guard's ear. Jesus immediately touched the guard and healed him. "Peter," he said, "this is not the way." Peter didn't realize that no army, no matter how big, could ever arrest Jesus, not unless Jesus let them. Then Jesus, who had never done anything except love people, was arrested as if he were a criminal. Jesus' friends were afraid, so they ran away and hid in the dark shadows. The guards marched Jesus off and took him to the leaders. The leaders put Jesus on trial. "Are you the Son of God?" they asked. "I am," Jesus said. "Who do you think you are to call yourself God? You must die for calling yourself the Son of God." They gave Jesus a crown made out of thorns and put a purple robe on him and pretended to bow down to him. "Your Majesty," they said. Then they whipped him and they spat at him. And they didn't understand that this was the Prince of Life, the King of heaven and earth, who had come to rescue them. The soldiers made him a sign, "Our King," and nailed it to a wooden cross. They walked up a hill outside the city. Jesus carried the cross on his back. Jesus had never done anything wrong, but they were going to kill him the way criminals are killed. They nailed Jesus to the cross. "Father, forgive them," Jesus gasped. "They don't understand what they're doing." "You say you've come to rescue us," people shouted, "but you can't even rescue yourself." But they were wrong. Jesus could have rescued himself. A legion of angels could have flown to his side if he'd called. "If you were really the Son of God, you could just climb down off that cross," they said. And of course they were right. Jesus could have just climbed down. Actually, he could have just said a word and made it all stop. And for the first time and the last when he spoke, nothing happened. Just a horrible, endless silence. God didn't answer. He turned away from his boy. Then Jesus shouted out in a long voice, "It is finished!" And it was. He had done it. Jesus had rescued the whole world. "Father," Jesus cried, "I give you my life." And with a great sigh, he let himself die. "This is the end of Jesus," the leader said. But just to be sure, they sent strong soldiers to guard the tomb. They hauled a huge stone in front of the door to the tomb so that no one could get in or out. Jesus' friends were sad. They would never see their best friend again. How could this happen? Wasn't Jesus the rescuer, the King God had promised? It wasn't supposed to end like this. Yes, but whoever said anything about the end? Before sunrise on the third day, God sent an earthquake and an angel from heaven. When the guards saw the angel, they fell down with fright. The angel rolled the huge stone away, sat on top of it, and waited. And at the first glimmer of dawn, Mary Magdalene and the other women headed to the tomb to wash Jesus' body. The friends walked quietly along the hilly path, through the olive groves, until they reached the tomb, and immediately they noticed something odd. It was wide open. They peered through the open door into the dark tomb, but wait! Jesus' body was gone. And something else. A shiny man was there with clothes made from lightning. Don't be scared, the angel said, but they couldn't help it. They screamed anyway. The angel asked them, "What are you doing here?" "This is a tomb, and tombs are for dead people." The woman couldn't speak. "Jesus isn't dead anymore," he said. "He's alive again." And their hearts leapt. And then the angels laughed with such gladness that they felt for a moment as if they had woken up from a nightmare. How could this be true? Jesus was definitely dead. How could he be alive? Just then Mary heard someone else in the garden. Perhaps it's a gardener, she thought. He'll know where Jesus' body is. Mary! Only one person said her name like that. She could hear her heart thumping. She turned around and she could just make out a figure. She shaded her eyes to see, and she thought she was dreaming. But she wasn't dreaming. She was seeing Jesus! Mary fell to the ground. Sudden tears filled her eyes, and great sobs shook her whole body. And all she wanted in that moment was to cling to Jesus and never let him go. "You'll be able to hold on to me later, Mary," Jesus said gently, "and always be close to me. But now, go and tell others that I'm alive." Well, Andy, that story surprised me in that I know the story, but as I read it, I found like I was almost there, like I was witnessing it. So it got emotional for me. But Jesus really did die and did rise again from the dead.
So as families are watching this online together, leading into Easter, what's one or two things that parents can talk about with their kids?
Well, Andy, because Jesus was risen from the dead, every day when you get up and see the sunrise, you can know that there's hope. Why? Because it's a new day, and every day is a day that God will be with you. Talk to your kids about what does it mean to have Jesus with you every day, when you go to school, when you come home, every part of every day.